The second mom lifted her wine glass and said, "It's so nice to finally have a son who's settled. I knew exactly where this was going." Quick note before we go further, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. My name's Curtis. I'm 45. I live just outside Lake Mather now, but that Christmas I was still pretending I belonged at my brother Brent's new house in Naperville. Brent was 2 years older, louder, faster, captain of every team he joined, from Little League to varsity. The kid could trip over a rake and still get clapped on the back for being full of energy. Me, I was the quiet one. Fixed radios, took things apart, kept the scoreboard running at his games because nobody else wanted to. I remember the day he won that county basketball trophy. Mom threw a party with streamers and a sheet cake shaped like a ball. People from the neighborhood came, cameras flashed. A week later, I took first place at the regional science fair with a radio I rebuilt from scrap. Mom looked up from folding towels and said, "Nice," then handed me the Polaroid and asked me to take photos of Brent's team banner for the scrapbook. Another time, Dad and I had planned a fishing trip, just us. I'd been bugging him for weeks, saved up for my own bait and everything. Morning of, Mom pulled me aside and said, "We need to reschedule. Brent's got a tux fitting for prom, and it's the only slot they had." Dad didn't even argue, just shrugged and grabbed his keys. At my 8th grade band concert, where I had a solo on trumpet, there was an empty seat right in front with a folded program and a note that said, "Reserved for family." I played through it anyway. Found out later Mom was across town at Brent's off-season scrimmage. Off-season. She told me, "People are counting on him." By the time I was 18, the pattern wasn't just clear, it was permanent. Brent got what Mom called the stay close plan. Tuition covered for the local community college, gas card on her account, and his truck insurance handled so he could stay focused. I said I wanted to take the HVAC apprenticeship out in Elgin. Decent pay, real work, a full path to certification. Mom nodded and said, "That's your choice. But don't expect help if you move out there." So I didn't. I scrounged, bought a dented Craftsman toolbox from a retired mechanic for $140, hauled it home in a rusted van I paid cash for from a neighbor down the street who felt bad enough to knock $100 off the price. I didn't bother showing her the van, just kept my head down and got to work. In my 20s, I hauled furnaces up basement stairs in winter and crawled through attic insulation in summer. Learned how to braze lines, troubleshoot boards, and quote repairs without blinking. Took every emergency call I could get, even the ones that came in at 2:15 in the morning. My hands were always burnt, my boots always patched, and my back felt 10 years older than I was. But I was stacking certs, EPA, NATE, you name it, on my own dime after hours. I kept a beat-up binder full of job sheets, receipts, and a running fuel log. Ran a spreadsheet on side gigs, $65 here, $120 there. Started moving the scraps into an index fund a tech buddy told me about. Not much, but it added up. I rented a drafty duplex over a barber shop in Freeport. Cooked cheap, rice, eggs, peanut butter. Didn't go out, didn't waste. When I hit 90,000 miles on the van, I upgraded to a used pickup with 147,000 already on it. Drove smooth and didn't smell like coolant. That was enough. Meanwhile, Brent rolled up in a lifted Silverado on payments and a new watch every other Christmas. When he bragged about closing deals, nobody asked for details. When he missed bills, Mom said, "He just needs a little bridge, that's all." But every holiday, I got the same script. "Curtis, a real man builds a home and a family." "I am building," I'd say. She'd wave it off. "Brent's on track. Promotion, maybe." Even when he was between jobs, again, she'd find a way to spin it. "He's networking. He's exploring options." I got no such spin, just the pressure. Be a provider. Be a man. Just do it with no help, no cushion, no backup plan. That kind of pressure either cracks you or hardens you. I let it harden me, right in the spine. Show up, finish, invoice, repeat. No one clapped when I fixed a no-heat call at 3 a.m. in January. No sheet cake when I cleared a packed lint trap that nearly lit a guy's laundry room on fire. No front row seat, no banner, no, I'm proud of you. Just silence. And still, every time I sat down at that table, Thanksgiving, Christmas, even the 4th, Mom found a way to slide Brent into the spotlight like it was scripted. Your brother's really figuring it out, she'd say. Yeah, with someone else's parachute. The first real crack came 4 winters before that Christmas blow-up. I'd landed a facilities contract with a medical building just outside Rockford. Older place with boilers that groaned like they were 40 years past retirement. I solved a pressure issue their last guy couldn't, rebuilt part of the loop, and got a 24-month service deal out of it. Biggest win I'd had up to that point. Meant consistent work, steady checks, less scrambling. At Sunday dinner, we were packed into Marlene's place. Small kitchen, too many chairs, that plastic tablecloth with the strawberries on it. People were halfway through green bean casserole when she turned to me and said, "So, Curtis, I heard you got a big job. What kind of building?" I blinked. It took me a second to register someone was actually asking about my work. "It's a 3-floor medical center," I said. "Older system. Boilers were stuck running hot, so I adjusted the control board and repiped a bypass, signed a long-term service contract." A couple heads turned. Even Brent stopped chewing. It lasted all of 15 seconds. Mom leaned forward, wine in hand. "Speaking of moving forward," she said, louder than needed, "Brent just got a new SUV, top trim, leather interior, fully loaded." And just like that, the spotlight slid off me like ice off a windshield. No follow-up. No "good job, Curtis." Nothing. After dinner, I helped carry dishes into the kitchen. Marlene stood by the sink and said, "You know, men don't like women who brag." I looked at her. "What?" She blinked, flinched a little, then pivoted. "I mean, don't get too wrapped up in work. Family matters too. Like being proud of solving a 6-month boiler issue meant I didn't have values, like I was still failing some test I never signed up for. On the drive home, I took the long way to drop Mom off. She buckled in, sighed, then launched into it. "Your brother's got steady pay now, a plan, a good woman. You don't have to do everything the hard way, Curtis. Don't be stubborn." I gripped the wheel tighter. Snow cracked under the tires. I didn't say much, because right then, it finally clicked. I could chase that nod for 10 more years and still be not quite there. Still be the backup player to Brent's highlight reel. So I quit giving updates. No more telling them when I signed a contract or passed a new cert. No more trying to prove I was worth clapping for. After that dinner at Marlene's, I kept my head down and worked. I didn't bring up deals, contracts, or milestones. Let Brent soak up the spotlight. He liked it better that way. Last spring, Mom threw a cookout to celebrate him getting pre-approved for a mortgage. I'm not kidding. A damn cookout for a pre-approval. She decorated the backyard like it was a game show prize reveal. "Welcome home" banner, balloons shaped like houses, and this giant novelty key prop someone found online. Uncle Ron and I ran the grill while Brent strutted around in boat shoes and sunglasses, showing everyone the printouts of the listing. 3 beds, bonus room, cul-de-sac made for bikes. Like he'd poured the concrete himself. People kept asking him how it felt to build something of your own. He'd nod like a war vet. It's about stability, putting down roots, timing's everything. Same guy who'd changed jobs 3 times the year before. I stayed quiet, flipped burgers, played my role. At one point, I went inside to grab more ice. Kitchen was empty. The bag was in the deep freeze, so I yanked it open, started chiseling it loose with a serving spoon. That's when I heard Mom's voice coming low from the dining room. "You're sure it's that much?" Paper shuffling. Her glasses must have been halfway down her nose. Brent sighed loud, like the whole weight of adulthood had landed on his neck. 12.5 short on closing. The truck payment's high, and the credit cards are almost tapped. I froze. He went on. "If you could just float me something, maybe from the IRA, just this once. Once my commission hits, I'll square it." I inched closer, peeked around the corner. Paperwork was spread across the table. Loan docs, bank statements, sticky notes in her handwriting. Brent sat slouched with a bottled water, like he was about to ask for a kidney. Mom said, "I'll see what I can move. Maybe some from my card too, if I can push the payment." I stood there holding the ice bucket, same hand that once held a bounced rent check. When I was 26, I asked that same woman for $300 to cover a security deposit, after I had already landed a steady HVAC job. She looked me dead in the face and said, "You're grown now, Curtis. Stand on your own 2 feet." I held on to that like gospel, scraped, saved, slept in my van one winter because I thought needing help meant I'd failed. And here she was, ready to drain retirement and stack debt for a guy wearing boat shoes and begging for 12 grand. I set the ice bucket down, walked out the sliding door like nothing happened. Ron passed me a pair of tongs. "We need more cheese slices out here," I said, on it. And I smiled. I smiled like the sun was finally hitting both sides of my face. That night, after the cookout, I went home, turned off my phone, and opened every account I had. Years of overtime, emergency calls at ungodly hours, brown bag lunches, patched boots, no vacations. It was all right there, spread across a Roth, a brokerage, a plain old savings account I opened when I was 22 and still sweating through crawl spaces. The numbers weren't flashy. They weren't the kind you show off on a beach in Mexico, but they were real. For months I'd been quietly looking at listings out in Lake Mather, a lakeside town about an hour and 15 from the city. Quiet roads, old ranch houses, actual garages with concrete floors and enough ceiling height for proper shelving. Taxes were sane, yards had trees. Nobody cared if your truck was 10 years old as long as you kept your lawn mowed. One listing had been sitting for 92 days, a weathered 3-bedroom with a cracked driveway and a 24 by 28 garage. The siding needed paint, half the gutters sagged, but out back was a stand of birch trees and a view of the water if you stood at the right angle. The agent said, "It needs love." I said, "Good." I met with a local planner, spread my papers out on his desk like a deck of cards. Property tax, insurance, projected maintenance, remodel costs for the garage shop, and my reserves. He looked at it all, tapped his pen twice, and said, "You can pay cash and sleep fine." So I did. Wires from accounts. I had grown one busted water heater and one broken igniter at a time. On key day, I stood in the living room alone. Baseboard heat ticked like a metronome. I could hear the soft slap of lake water against rocks through the window screen. Something in my chest unclenched. I only told Tessa. She didn't say wow or ask how much it cost. She just showed up with a red toolbox and a trunk full of plants she swore could survive nuclear fallout. We spent 2 weekends gutting the kitchen, scraped up old linoleum, patched drywall, pulled out screws so rusted I had to use pliers. She set up shelves in the garage while I labeled bins. We argued about where the couch should go, centered on the window or angled toward the TV. "You can't face the couch away from the lake," she said. "I'll see the lake when I'm outside," I told her. "Inside's for peace." She looked at me. "So's a view." We split the difference. By the 3rd weekend, she brought over coffee and a bag of knobs for the kitchen cabinets. "These look like something you'd pick." I said, "Why? Because they're plain?" She grinned. "Because they work." I told her I didn't want a house full of showpieces. I didn't want matching signs above the mantel or coordinated candles for every season. I wanted one thing in my life that no one could turn into a damn stage. She didn't say anything to that, just kept screwing in knobs like it made sense. And for the first time in a long time, it actually did. By December, the house was mostly in shape. New paint, working cabinets, garage shelves labeled and lined. I could finally breathe in the place. I would have been fine spending Christmas alone, but Tessa said we should go, just to show face. "Go, eat the ham, keep your coat on, and say nothing stupid," she'd joked. Brent's Christmas setup looked like a damn catalog cover. White lights everywhere, cinnamon candles burning in every room, coordinated stockings hung with gold clips, his initials stitched in perfect cursive. Even the serving spoons matched. I parked 2 houses down and walked up slow. Brought a good bottle of bourbon, kept my coat on the back of the chair, sat quiet, nodded at the right times. People asked questions. I answered in short phrases. Mom moved through the house like a general marching the field, grabbing napkins, straightening place settings, giving Brent these proud little side-eye glances like he'd won something for all of us. Mid-turkey, she tapped her wine glass with her fork. "I just want to take a second to appreciate Brent," she said, beaming. "He's finally got stability. A home, a plan, something to be proud of." Then she turned. "Curtis, when are you going to get serious?" Brent didn't miss a beat, smirked, mouth half full. "Can't rent forever, man." I swallowed, set down my fork, voice flat. "I'm already set. I just didn't invite the peanut gallery." Mom rolled her eyes. "Curtis, don't be dramatic." "I'm not renting," I said. "I bought in Lake Mather back in March. 3 bedrooms, an office, a detached shop, paid cash." The silence cracked like a tree branch under weight. Brent laughed through his nose. "Sure you did." Tessa didn't even look up from her plate. "I've been there. It's real." Now the eyes swung back and forth like a bad tennis match. Me, Brent, me, again. Mom leaned forward, sharp. "Why would you hide that from family?" I didn't blink. "Because every time I've tried to show you anything, you change the subject to him." Her voice got high and clipped. "This isn't about that. You're trying to one-up your brother at his dinner." I looked at Brent. "I'm glad anyone can buy a house. I'm not glad he did it leaning on your retirement account and maxed out cards while preaching stability to me." Brent's chair scraped back. "You were eavesdropping like a little bitch?" "No," I said. "I was standing next to the ice bucket in June when you told her you were 12 grand short and needed her IRA just this once." Mom froze. Her mouth opened, then closed again. That tight look crossed her face, like something in her was ripping but didn't want to show. I turned to her. "You told me to stand on my own 2 feet, and I have. For decades. He's standing on your savings." Chairs creaked. A knife tapped a plate. Someone muttered, "Wow," low enough that it could have been breath. Mom's voice cracked. "You're ruining Christmas." I stood. "You ruined it when you used it to put me down in front of everyone. Again." She blinked, stunned. "I'm done with the contest," I said. "I'm done showing up to get graded by a scale I never had a shot at. You can keep it." Tessa stood up next to me without saying a word, grabbed her coat and her keys like she'd been waiting. We walked out through that over-decorated living room and into the cold. The porch light buzzed behind us. The sky was clear, stars out. Breath clouding in front of our faces. Felt 10 degrees cleaner out there by the curb. We didn't say anything until we got to the car. Tessa unlocked it, slid in, and said, "You really dropped it in there like a pipe wrench." I smiled. Felt overdue. We didn't say much on the drive back from Brent's that night. Tessa had one hand on the wheel, the other gripping a styrofoam cup from the gas station. Somewhere around mile 20, she muttered, "Whole house looked like Pottery Barn exploded." I leaned my head against the cold window and said, "Not my problem anymore." The family group chat went dead for 3 straight weeks. No Happy New Year. No how's work. Just a couple cousins throwing in merry memes like drywall over a cracked foundation. One night Tessa texted, "They keep replaying how you smiled when you said paid cash. You're a legend in the worst and best way." I stared at the message a while before replying. It was the truth. Nothing else was going to get through. In February, Aunt Marlene and Uncle Ron came up to the lake. They brought too many chips, not enough coats, and forgot to check if their Airbnb had heat. I let them crash on my pullout. We walked the shore while the ice was still thick and crunchy. Ron asked how I'd handled the shop wiring. Marlene said, "You know, I should have spoken up sooner." I stopped walking and looked out at the trees. "You see it now? That's enough." Spring rolled in. I didn't hear from Brent, but I heard about him. Commissions had slowed down. He'd been banking on a promotion that never came. The lifted truck and the house note didn't care about timing. By early June, word was the lender got loud. Mom tried to help, again, shuffling money around, floating bills. But math doesn't flinch, not for anyone. He sold the house by August. Less than 9 months after the victory parade, listing price dropped twice. The cul-de-sac made for bikes couldn't stop the bleeding. That's when the voicemails started. At first, Mom's voice was sharp. "How could you humiliate your brother like that? In front of everyone?" I deleted it. Next one came a week later, softer. "We're still family, Curtis. Maybe you could spot him a little, just for a while." Deleted that one too. Then one night I was sitting on the porch, listening to the wind through the birches, and her last one came in, shaky, raw. "I'm sorry. I didn't see what I did to you." I called her back. Just once. I told her I loved her, but I wasn't going to be the fixer for choices I didn't make. I said, "No more money talks. No more comparing me to Brent. No more jabs at holidays." She said, "Okay." I didn't know if she meant it, so I told her what would happen if those lines got crossed. And when they did, because they always do, I blocked numbers, muted the chat, gave myself room. I slept better in that house than anywhere I'd lived before. I didn't just sit on peace, I built with it. Started putting more time into work and into a Tuesday night program at the vocational center up in Belridge. Mostly younger guys, a few single dads, all tired in the eyes. I showed them how to read service manuals without guessing, how to quote jobs so they didn't get hosed, how to build a budget where overtime actually mattered. We weren't saving the world, just changing a few Tuesday nights at a time. One week, a kid named Darren wired a thermostat right on the first try. Took a step back and stared at it like he didn't trust it was done. I clapped him on the back. "That's how it's supposed to look." He grinned. "Seriously?" "Seriously," I said. "You did it right." Standing there, tools in hand, heat kicking on in the wall behind us, I felt something I hadn't in years. Not pride, not revenge, just steady. By late fall, my old high school put out a bid for a multi-year facilities contract. Heating, plumbing odds, preventive checks. Nothing glamorous, just solid work. My crew beat out 3 bigger outfits on price and reliability. We got the job. The first morning I rolled up, the fog was still hanging low over the parking lot. My logo, bold red on white, stood out clear as day on the side of the van. I walked in with a clipboard and a thermos and got to work. Didn't think much about it until Tessa texted later that week. "Your mom's friend saw the van in the pickup line, asked if that was you." A day later, Mom called, voice shaking, crying even. She said, "I'm proud of you. I didn't say it before, but I am." I listened, let the words sit. Then I told her gently, "Thank you, but the boundary still stands." She didn't fight it, just sniffed, said, "Okay," and hung up. Brent, meanwhile, was renting again. Smaller place off a frontage road near a shut-down Sears. He called one afternoon, didn't even lead in with pleasantries. "Can you teach me that quotes and cash flow thing you were talking about? Just the basics." I paused. "There's a free workshop at the center on Tuesdays. I can point you there. They'll walk you through it." He didn't like that answer. I could hear it in the silence that followed, but it was fair. And I didn't know him more than that. Thanksgiving, I hosted. Tessa brought cornbread. Ron and Marlene showed up with paper plates and cheap wine. I invited 2 guys from the shop, one just out of a bad divorce, the other between jobs. No speeches, no pressure, just chili, football, and stories about cracked heat exchangers and leaking pressure valves. No one had to prove anything. No one had to be the golden child. I didn't crush anyone. I didn't run a victory lap. I just stopped letting other people write me as the background character. That was enough. If there's revenge in all this, it's not loud. It's not a scene. It's not a speech at a table. It's me building a life in plain sight and letting the truth do the talking. They're welcome to visit. If they can show up without tearing me down, the door's open. If not, I'll be out back by the birches, putting up another shelf in the shop, running wire, or maybe just drinking coffee with the door cracked open. Either way, I'm sleeping good at night.